Okay, and we're live now. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second e-learning session powered by Ariva Academy. Once again, this is Irish Malonda Samson, and I'm your moderator for today. So our topic for today is how to manage your visibility while on a work from home arrangement. But before I introduce our speaker, please allow me to first greet our attendees. We have attendees from Singapore. They are four participants. We have attendees from Malaysia, Wilayah, Malaysia. We have someone from Kuala Lumpur, from Sabah. Uh, they are all from Malaysia. Okay, next is we also have our participants from Bangkok, Thailand. Thank you for joining us. We also have our participants from India, Mumbai, India, and Noida, India. Thank you. We have also participants from Bahrain, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, Beijing, China, Doha, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, wow. From Mexico City, Byron Bay, Australia, Sydney, Australia, Houston, Texas, Florida, USA, and United Kingdom. I would also like to acknowledge Ms. Mi Holland, our international speaker from Vietnam and Australia, and also Mr. Chris Randolph from Malaysia. And I would like to greet as well my Ariva family, my Ariva Academy family. See you. I miss you guys. So before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to say some few house rules. For us to make the live webinar learning event successful and smooth flowing, okay, we will be having our 2 to 3 minutes coffee break. This is after the presentation of our guest speaker and before we move on to the question and answer portion. Participants' microphones will be temporarily disabled by the administrator during discussion to avoid interruptions. Questions will be entertained after each topic of the session. For the question and clarifications during the provided time after each topic, click raise button for the administrator to enable the microphone for live questions. Questions may also be given via chat. One question at a time will be entertained. For comments and feedbacks, please send us your feedback on this. Please click this and scan this QR code and send us your feedback for us to improve our future e-learning sessions, okay? And now to discuss how to manage your visibility while on a work from home arrangement, our speaker today is a proud Filipino winner of the hit Asian reality TV show, The Apprentice Asia. For winning the show, he served for 1 year as Chief of Staff of AirAsia, reporting directly to Malaysian business mogul Tony Fernandez based in Kuala Lumpur. Born and raised in Manila, he is a multi-awarded marketer and HR professional with over 10 years of experience in Southeast Asia. Dubbed as Asia's millennial guru and the world's widest motivational and marketing speaker. He is Asia's leading motivational speaker on topics involving leadership, talent development of Gen Y workers, and office productivity. Today, he is the founder and managing director of his marketing consultancy firm, the JY Consultancy and Ventures, which offers marketing and talent optimization services to startups and Fortune 500 companies in Asia. Without further ado, let us all now welcome Mr. Jonathan Yabut. Hi, John. Good afternoon. Hello, John.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Is everyone doing well this afternoon? It's 4:00 p.m. here. I'm sure some of you guys have just finished work, or perhaps some of you guys are just about to finish work. So just to align everyone's energy before we start, can I get please an exclamation point in your chat box and see if you guys are checking out my screen now? Is it all clear? Is my voice clear? Do you guys see the cover slide, which is the title of our session? And the title of that is How to Manage Your Visibility While on a Work From Arrangement. All right, very good. I am seeing people's exclamation points. Some people even multiple ones. Very good. So thank you guys for spending your time with us today. I'm very excited with this topic because this is very timely. It seems like it's been 2 or 3 weeks since a lot of us have already been locked up in our own homes. If you're from other parts of the world, it may have just started a few days ago or just about to start a few days from now. So this is very fitting because this is all about visibility. And as we all know, as I will discuss later on, more than anything else, no matter how good you are and no matter how smart you are or how fast you perform, if you don't have an audience who gets to see what's happening within your sphere of influence, that performance is not going to be translating into promotion or into an achievement. All right. So just to start, this is our company, by the way. We have partnered up with the Ariva Academy. I think it's been 4 years or 5 years now, Irish anniversary since we've had. So this is JY Consultancy and Ventures. You're one of Asia's leading consultancy partners when it comes to conducting both marketing and sales. And at the same time, also talent, leadership, how to manage the millennials, public speaking, body language, etc. We've take pride that we are one of Asia's world widest motivational business speakers. So we've conducted our workshops not only in the Philippines or in Southeast Asia, but also in many countries such as far as Buenos Aires in Argentina or as far as New York in United States. And these are some of the clients we've had in the past. I also want to plug, by the way, because I think this is very related to our topic of what's going to happen today. If you're also interested, and I think there are still a few slots left, after this session, which is about the employee's visibility, tomorrow we are conducting another session, Leadership in Time of Quarantine, how to manage and develop remote teams. All right. And before I start, if you have any burning itching questions, these are my social media accounts and my website. Please do tag me if you're going to take photos of your screens and of your phones. It would be nice to see how people feel about the session. And of course, this is my email address. The idea here, guys, is ideally it would be nice if you all get to share your thoughts online. But if not, you can still share your thoughts via email. All right. Please be prepared to engage in the following activities spread across the session. Number 1, I'm going to ask you guys to comment on the chat box when necessary, but anytime you can always add something. Number 2, we're going to be adding up some polls. So the interesting part about Zoom is that there's a feature wherein I get to ask a question, you get to choose your answer, and we get to see the results of everyone in the session. And finally, number 3, of course, we are going to put a session about, how do you call this? Asking a question, and Irish will take good care of that later on. Okay, let's start with a poll. So here's a poll now, and I'm going to be launching one on your screen. Do not type your answer yet. So I'm going to be asking you guys to answer this, okay? And you can type your answers also in the chat box. Number 1, how concerned are you about your job security in the next few months? Could you please type your answer? We're going to use the chat box for now, guys, because it seems like my poll is not working. But I want to see how your answers are. Okay, a lot of it, letter C. Letter C. Lots of letter C. Very good. This is what I want to hear, guys. Because some of my friends aren't in letter C. They are somehow in letter B, somehow concerned. So very good. Somehow optimistic that I will get through. But of course, this is maybe a different set or a batch of people. Some people may not be in a different industry. For example, I have lots of friends from the airline industry, and they're in letter A, for example. So I pray that they get through it as well. Okay, very good. So I asked this question because we all know that what's going to happen in the next few months or next few weeks is there's so much unpredictability and there's so much risk. And so the only way for you to, one of the ways to control that level of predictability is to make sure that you are visible within the company, that the ability to contribute and the perception of people that you are contributing is out there. So here's where I move now. And here's where I want to recall. Recall, guys, that your career progression is based on the following 3 things. If this was like fire, remember that fire has 3 elements. You have fuel, oxygen, and heat. The same thing happens for career progression. The first one is your performance. You're always going to be measured whether or not you are delivering based on what's asked from you. Number two, visibility. No matter how good your performance is, if people don't know that you are the rock star of the company, then that performance might go to waste. So that means how significant is your impact to the organization. And remember, many times, the larger the organization is, the more is the perception becoming the reality. When people don't get to physically see you every day, when people don't get to interact with you every day, what they hear about you, whether it's a rumor, a scandal, or their perception about you, becomes the reality of what they think about you. And those things are important because they get incorporated in decision making when you're about to get promoted or when you're about to get assigned to something else. Or unfortunately, in today's times, when they get to decide if they need to lay off, for example, some people in the organization. And finally, number three, relationships. No matter how good you are in what you do, and no matter how visible you are, if people don't like working with you because they don't like your personality, or let's say, for example, you have an attitude problem that makes it hard for people to walk as if they are walking on eggshells whenever they work with you, that also affects your career progression. And I've known so many people in my careers, they're very good, they're fast in what they do, they deliver the numbers, but because they're not charismatic enough or they're not charming enough in the eyes of the decision makers, their progression also gets stalled. So here's where I ask you guys now, hold an imaginary dart, and I want you guys to pin it on the screen and ask yourself, as an employee of my organization today, do I get to tick all of those three? And here's where we ask yourself, if not, what am I working on today in order for me to get promoted? And again, for this specific session, I'm putting it in that red box. Our discussion is going to be focused on visibility. Your performance is relevant to your ability. Your relationship is related to your personality, but your visibility is something that you can control. And during this time of COVID-19 is something that you need to hustle on. So speaking of visibility, John, my next question now is, what do you mean when someone is visible? How do we measure good visibility? When you look at politics and when you look at organizational behavior, someone who has good visibility is, number one, has clear roles and is perceived, I want to underline that, perceived by the organization and his peers as significantly contributing to the bottom line. I'm underlining perception, guys, because perception, again, is reality. What people think about you becomes what people will say about you or talk about you later on. Number two, people who have good visibility proactively offer their opinions during decision making. So in meetings, in emails, in WhatsApp or Viber conversations, how active are you in sharing your feedback? How active are you in volunteering this amount of information? And in doing so, when people think about a certain issue and problem, you become the first thing that comes up into their mind because they think you can contribute more for this project. That means you're visible. And finally, number three, people who are visible consistently stamp their presence regardless of their physical distance to the office or their colleagues. This is where you have to admit, guys, that being in the corporate world is also staging a theater. It's staging your presence. And what that means is, for example, when I'm on a business trip, when I was in the corporate world, and I knew that I was going to be out of the office for 4 or 5 days, I make sure that I consistently send them emails that refer to my business trip. Hi guys, I'm on my business trip right now. Just want to send to you the feedback from our customers. A lot of them thought like this, A, B, C, and D. And this means that even if I'm not there, even if I don't get to have lunch with them in the cafeteria, even if I don't get to bump into them at the water dispenser in the pantry, they know that I am proactively contributing. Some of you may ask, John, does this mean that you are acting it out? Yes, you are. Because at the end of the day, when life is too much cluttered with so many other things, you cannot expect people to be thinking about you, especially when you're just a small speck of dust compared to the universe right now. Remember, guys, in today's world, people think about other things. How do I eat tomorrow? How do I get my grocery? Will I still have internet connection the next day? All of these things get cluttered into their mind. Your goal is to make sure that you're one of the people that they still think about, especially when corporate matters are involved. That's visibility. And so, however, so we now jump to the conflict of our story. The conflict is no matter how much you want to push your visibility, work from home arrangements become the limitation. Limitation number one, communication will never be the same. This means that if in the past, when you were in the office, you can easily nudge someone and say, hey, could you check out my email? Hey, could you please check my SMS? Those things can't be easily done anymore. So the things that we take for granted need an extra step for us to do them. You need to call someone, you need to send a WhatsApp message, and they will not be able to reply easily. And so therefore, when communication is never the same, you now have lesser exposure to people, which means that every exposure is every moment that counts. You don't anymore get to bump people into the elevator. Neither do you get to bump them in the cafeteria. For these reasons, you have to milk every opportunity that you get to talk to someone, because that last interaction could be their last impression of who you are in the organization. Are first impressions or last impressions wrong? Yes, they are, but they do matter. And that's how unfair life in the corporate world is. Life is unfair, but your goal is to maneuver and manipulate how you can get through that unfairness in life so you can progress with your career. Number two, because we don't get to see people anymore and we don't get to observe how they behave, how they speak, their body language, the kinds of rants that they do on lunchtime, the kinds of jokes that they share during meetings. When we therefore evaluate people, or when we get evaluated by our managers and peers, it's going to be hard for them to evaluate us based on our emotions and our actions. And therefore, many of us will now be evaluating people simply on output. What does this mean? If you have a reason, for example, for not delivering the numbers, it's hard for you to easily explain your reasons why. Why? Because people did not get to witness the reasons why. They didn't see you in the office. They didn't see you in the field. There's no such thing as being able to physically observe someone while working. And so people will have perceptions that if you did not deliver the numbers, then you weren't performing. That amount of paranoia and that amount of unfairness is now stacked upon every one of us. And therefore, your goal is that to have that healthy amount of assumption that if people think that you may not be performing, you have to make that extra effort and extra nudge that you are rather performing. That's visibility, and that's also creating a stage. Finally, number three, if in the past there were such a thing as office cliques, people who go to lunch together, people who go out on a Friday night together, people who prefer to working together in projects, because we're no longer physically together, expect that they will be transforming into Viber groups, into email threads. And so these things are harder to penetrate compared to, let's say, for example, they're harder to penetrate compared to, let's say, a clique in the cafeteria. If you wanted to penetrate a group in the past, you can easily sit down to their table and say, hey guys, what's up? How's that project doing? That doesn't happen anymore. You can't easily insert yourself into a WhatsApp group. You cannot easily insert yourself in an email thread. And for that reason, it's harder to push your presence in front of other people. What does this mean? Here's where I ask you now, if that is the issue, you always have to keep your open ears and you have to build good relationships that allows you to get added into as many groups as you can. For example, if in the office, there's such a thing as the water cooler station where people congregate and make small talks to each other, where is that happening now? What are the Viber groups? What are the WhatsApp groups? What are the email threads? What are the announcements in the internal communication platform? If you're using, let's say, Facebook Work or whatever it is that you have, are you aware that these things are existing? All right. So, John, is life tougher these days? Yes, it is. But I also like to think that it becomes more exciting because it's a new set of challenges that when you get to conquer them, you tell yourself, I was there, I struggled, but I was able to get through. And so here's where I ask you now, if that is the case, I want you to have a self-assessment of your visibility. So be mindful of how you think you are visible, because sometimes you might think that this is you, but in reality, this is just you. All right. And a lot of us have a tendency to overestimate ourselves. That's psychologically proven. We think we sing better when we're in the showers when we're actually not as good as someone else. If you think that you are very, very good looking, you might want to rethink that because you haven't been stepping out of the house for the longest time. And so when you finally get out again, you realize that there are more people way good looking than you are. So the essence here is that when you benchmark yourself not just versus your own standards, but versus the standards of others. So the left side of the graph here is yourself, the right side are the others. You have to ask questions such as, how do you perceive your impact to the company versus how you think your colleagues perceive your impact? And finally, how your colleagues think, how you think your colleagues perceive about your impact. Those two things are different because the reality is what your colleagues really think. Your paranoia or your underestimation could be they think you're good, you think that they think you're good, but in reality, they don't think that you are. So you have to consider all of these things when you measure your visibility. If there's one thing that I can compare it to, it is similar to the Johari window. What you know, what other people know, what you don't know, but other people know, what you don't know, and you've yet to know, or the facade that you put, for example. So that is measurement of visibility. And many times, I'm going to repeat it again, the perception of people becomes the reality, and sometimes is more important than the reality. This is where many times you think you should have been promoted, but you did not get promoted. Why? Because you thought you performed, ticked all the boxes, but in the mindset of the decision makers, they don't think that you did. That's because their perception is different from your reality. And many times the perception of the decision makers are more important than the reality. You have to play the part. You have to act it out. All right. I want to see again in your chat box, guys, another poll. Do you think you are visible now that we've discussed about this? Do you think that you are visible pre-COVID-19? Oh, there you go. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing the poll. I want you guys to please submit. Click on the screen. And in a while, in 30 seconds, we're going to see how you guys fare. Yes, I've always been number 2 somewhat, and I'm working on it. Number 3, I am only learning recently how visibility is important. Thank you to Jonathan Stock, for example. All right. Let's see how people fare. And again, Jeff, I think if we're already good, we can show now how we are, the results of people. All right, we got it now. 53%. Yes, I've always been. I think it's a toss between the two, somewhat, and I'm working on it. Okay, 6% said that they are recently learning. That's good. 6% get to have something change in their lives today. All right, very good, guys. So again, remember, self-improvement starts with self-awareness. You cannot identify what needs to get done next if you don't even admit to yourself that something needs to be changed. All right. Very good. Let's go back to our slides. Let me just share my slide then, guys. All right. Since we've talked about your visibility now, number 2, be mindful of who evaluates your visibility in the company. Now, this politics may vary from company to company. It depends on who appraises you. It could be your boss, your manager. You may have some dotted lines with other organizations or other teams. But if you look at this sphere, of course, you start, and then the second level of people you interact with the most will be your manager and teammates, followed by your department head. and finally by the HR and other company leaders. Of course, understand that it's not only your boss who decides your promotion. The boss of the boss also gets to sign that paper. In many organizations, there are deliberation committees composed of HR and other leaders in other departments who you may not know and may not know you well, but unfortunately, they get to decide whether or not you should be promoted. Is life unfair? Yes, and they do exist a lot. So here's where what we call as the promotion paradox. The promotion paradox states at the start, the younger you are or the more low ranking you are, your progression in the company is highly influenced by people who will likely not see you or work directly with you. Many times it's your manager who initiates the promotion, but he does not get to decide everything on her own. And this is also why I always say, if you have the chance to choose your managers wisely, because you have to choose someone who will fight for you and who will lobby for you, even if those decision makers will say, I don't remember who that guy is. I haven't seen that guy in any of my meetings at all. I haven't seen that guy in any of my emails. You want a manager who will be the one who will carry the torch and says, nope, he's ready to get a bigger desk and he's ready to get promoted. And this is why your visibility should not be limited only to your manager. Your manager may see you every day, but you need to spread and sprinkle your presence to other people. The boss of your boss, the VP, the HR, all of these people will get to decide also your promotion. So here's where we go to the second half now. Now that we understand visibility, what do we do next? And here are the next steps. And I want these guys to be as practical as possible so you get to do them the moment this session ends. Number one, please make it as a habit. As much as you can, schedule an alignment meeting with your manager once a week. Now, if you work in multinational companies wherein the culture is already established, most of you already are doing this in the past, even without COVID-19. But if you're in one of those organizations that do not have the culture of constant communication, you have to set an alignment meeting. Why? Because now that your boss does not see you on a daily basis, your boss may not even know what exactly you're doing. So ask questions such as, I'd like to share with you that these are the 5 projects I'm working on for the next 2 weeks. And it's very interesting because some managers will keep on forgetting, I didn't know that you were working on this project. Good thing you told me because I was about to assign a new project for you. But for now, I think I'll delay it because your work is already fully loaded. These things will not happen as often as anymore as it was in the past because we're no longer seated beside our managers. Our manager is no longer a meter or 3 meters away from us. It will take an extra step for us to send them a message, call them, and many times we will be shy to call them even. And so if you create a schedule, you create a commitment that every Monday morning at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, we want to align everything so that if it gets wrong, you know the reason why. So you have to schedule that. If some of you are familiar, there are so many tactics about this. One of my favorite is the 4 Disciplines of Execution by Stephen Covey. So he calls it as the Whigs and the Pigs meeting. You identify the top X things that need to get done for the week, and the rest you decide that they may be delegated or be deferred to another date. All right. Number 2, don't leave any stone unturned. I want you guys, just like an octopus with so many tentacles, to spread yourself across all communication channels. So that means if you're only accustomed to using your email, now is the time to spread your wings and make sure that you are abreast with using other types of technology. If people start using Viber more often, do so. If people are using more WhatsApp more so often, do so. If your company has accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, follow those accounts. If you do a lot of meetings now on Zoom, start studying how Zoom works. Because if this is going to be our life in the next 3 or 4 months, you cannot afford to fail in a presentation because you did not know what button to press on Zoom. And I'm going to say this now, guys, because Zoom is not that simple to use. It can be as complicated. And Irish, you know this as well because you've been using Zoom for quite some time as well. It took us a while to understand how Zoom works. There are a lot of webinars that you can try online to check it out. Okay. The reason why I'm sharing number 2, guys, is because if you limit yourself to only one type of communication platform, you might be missing out to the conversations that are happening elsewhere. And this is important because the fact that you may not be visible because they even don't know your number or because you don't know that an account exists, they might not even think about adding you into that group. And missing out on a group on 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days can mean your career being sabotaged because you forgot this amount of information. Number 2. Let's do another poll. Okay. Jeff, can we also place this up again? So here's where we add the question now. And the question is, are you sure that you are already using all the communication platforms of your company? Yes, I'm always up to date. Yes, but let me ask around again because I got paranoid after this session. Or number 2, or number 3, I didn't care until I realized in the last slide. Let's see how your answers are. And again, guys, this is a very petty question, but it really makes you reflect. Have I covered all my bases? Right? It's the same way that you're in a buffet. You think that you've eaten everything because you've seen the Japanese, the Filipino, the Malaysian buffet. And then you realize, gosh, there's a Chinese portion out there that I forgot to eat because I did not look around. So the same thing happens here for this situation. All right, let's share the results. Can we look at the results now? Let's see how people are faring. Okay, very good. 70% say that they are aware. Very good, guys. And again, otherwise, your goal is to keep on looking, keep on asking questions from other people if you think that they haven't covered all the bases. Number 3, okay, second to the last now. I want you guys to please expand beyond your scope. Expand beyond what's written on your job description and your employment contract. This is the best time to step up to the plate and say, hey, everyone is in a mess. Everything is so chaotic, but I'm in control and I can offer us some extra help because I'm that good. So as much as you can, nudge, connect, and volunteer. There are many COVID-19 projects that are rather likely being instituted right now in your organization. If you can volunteer because HR announces, that increases your visibility, not only to your teammates, but also to leaders. So remember this part. I showed this a while ago. This is your the sphere of influence, right? You have to go beyond this because this is only a scope of your work. What you want is to go to the other circles. So it could be, for example, your global partner or your regional manager in another country and say, hey, is there anything that I can help? Is there a global initiative right now in my organization wherein we can help out other employees step up to the plate? It could be your finance counterpart and simply sending her a Viber or WhatsApp message and say, hey, do you need help about the reports? Can I ask if there are going to be changes about the reportings of finance in the next few weeks? It could also be, for example, your sales team in the provinces who may not be able to access others properly. So just the mere fact that, let's say, one of your salespeople in the field say that they cannot access Zoom because their internet connection is not as stable as it is in the metro. Small things like those that you can report to HR is something that will be appreciated because they get to have someone else's ears out there in the field. I'll give you one really small example, but made so much impact. I have a friend who works in a pharmaceutical company in the province, and a lot of them aren't able to access the internet now that they are doing a lot of online trainings. So you know what the company did? When this was discovered by their HR, for a span of 5 days, they placed those 28 medical representatives in a hotel that's affordable, that has more stable internet connection. And some of them were given allowances by their company to spend for proper internet. Now, I totally understand not all of you will have these types of generous employers, but my point is, if it doesn't get raised, it will not be acted upon on, right? Also, and if you guys are familiar with my past webinars, this is one of my favorite slides. Remember that there is such a thing as exploiting what we call as weak ties. So for example, in the y-axis, it refers to how close you are to other people, whether it's your loved ones, your office mates, or your colleagues. And on the y-axis, that refers to the amount of time that you've been together. Other one being the most recent, you are still together for X number of years. You have people who fall under this category. They are your family, your friends, your work colleagues. You are together up until this point, and you want to remain like that, and your being close is very high. But there are other people who fall under here. Could be your ex-colleagues, your ex-girlfriend, your ex-high school classmate, your neighbor's sister, and there are others who are someone you met in a conference, a friend you made in a Facebook group, the office mate of your neighbor's best friend's girlfriend, no matter what those are. The ones on top are what we call as the strong ties. And then the other ones in the blue are called the weak ties. There's this beautiful study by Mark Granovetter, and if you can watch the TED Talk, just type weak ties. And the video that comes out tries to share that most people do not get their jobs because they exploit their strong ties. It's because they exploit their weak ties. Most of us find a new job because we were able to look for someone who can offer us something new. Most of our strong ties can't offer anything new anymore because we have exhausted them for the longest time. So networking is all about activating your weak ties. Think about your past careers. You probably got this job not because you were only referred by a friend, but because a friend of a best friend, or because randomly on Facebook you saw someone's friend post it. Those are weak ties, and weak ties cannot be discounted at this point. All right, last poll. Let's look at your answers. Do you have a plan B, C, or D in case things do not go well for your careers? Let's look at your poll. And I want to see your answers again. You might tell me like, John, your polls are very scary. It makes me think that I'm going to lose my job soon. And I'm not trying to scare you guys, but I'm trying to put the reality here that if it may happen, the best thing to do is to not worry about it, but be in control of it by preparing ahead of what can be done. All right, so I see a lot of letter C's. Okay, yes, I've always been. Number 2, somewhat I'm working on it. John, I will after you made me realize in this talk again. Okay, I hope a lot of people say it's letter A, because you can only be as dispensable as another employee, no matter how good you are. I hope you guys understand that. Just like any investment, we have to put our eggs in different baskets. And being part of any organization, we should have a balance of both the heart and the mind as well. Okay, can we check at the results? Do we have the results now, by the way? Businesses are going to be changing in the next few more months. Recession is already there. And so we have to understand, ask your manager how COVID-19 may change your career path. And I want you guys to take responsibility about this, because no one will take good care of your career but you. So if you look at this metaphor as if there was a train and he goes to different stations, let's say prior to COVID-19, you had an original plan that this was your career map. I need to get this project done. Here's my next situation. Here's how I get promoted. But now that there's COVID-19, things could be different instead. And so you might end up with a detour. You might end up with a different position. Your manager may be adding a different set of skills that he wants you to do. If you can anticipate that earlier, the better. Because the longer time you know it, the longer you can also prepare for it. I always like to think that anything that we're preparing for is just like life insurance. It's morbid to talk about death, but because it's going to happen at some point, you might as well prepare for it. And it's not because you're being emotional about it, but because it's the logical thing to do. The same thing happens here. And when I say anticipating, guys, I'm not just talking about losing your job. If losing your job is not applicable to you, what may be applicable instead could be a change of business, a change in the products. Does this mean, therefore, that you need to step up and you need to understand more how Facebook works? Because your company is no longer going to be selling in brick and mortar stores. A lot of them are now going to be selling online. In order for you to become relevant in the organization, how can you show to them that you are the expert in social media marketing, for example? And if you can't show that, the company will have a reason to look for someone else as well. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's best to be prepared. All right. And with that, that ends our session. If you have, what's my next step, buyers? Do we have a Q&A?
Yes, Q&A. But before that, we will be having a quick breakdown. So
Okay. Can I plug as well my books?
Sure.
If you guys are also interested, by the way, and I'm very excited to see your question, but before that, if you're interested, our best-selling books are now available in digital formats. So you can take a screenshot. That is the link to our books, and you can shop because we have an ongoing sale from April 1 to April 15. I think we're going to have a break for 5 minutes.
Yes, so please stand by. Guys, we will be having a quick break, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Every coffee needs a lotus.
Hi, I'm Mel and I am choosy. My ultimate skin goal is gusto kong mag-even out ang skin tone ko.
Hi, my name is Gian Enwada. My skin goals are to become whiter, fairer, healthier, and younger.
It really shows na yung skin ko ngayon mas moisturized, mas glowing, and mas healthy.
Thanks to Glutasy, I got my skin tone back. Thank you so much, Glutasy.
As COVID-19 cases continue to rise all over the world and enhanced community quarantine stops most of business transactions, struggles such as keeping up with business process, continuing to equip employees to be productive, and complying with government for taxes and financial reporting make it more difficult for an organization to endure the current crisis. But how can you keep up? The answer is flexibility. You don't need to be a superhero to be flexible. Just the right mindset, a lot of hard work, and a powerful tool. Let your business be empowered. Manage your sales, purchases, and inventory online. Unleash the productivity of your employees even if they are at home. Start to have a future-proof business right now. For more details about Q&E accounting system online, call us at 0917-710-4722 or email us at sales@qne.com.ph. 30% discount will be given as our help to all the businesses within the Philippines. Stay at home and stay safe.